Good day and welcome to this Focus On. I'm in Luanda, Angola at the Angola Oil Gas Conference for 2023, and the aim of this conference is to gather government officials, key industry players, policymakers and regulators to discuss the current oil and gas sector and what the future holds. In the next 30 minutes, I'll be speaking to some of these officials and key stakeholders to understand where the sector is going and where Angola lies within this industry. I want to know from TotalEnergies, what's your strategy for exploration here in Angola?
Well, Angola has been is one of our most significant assets in our portfolio. We produce over 500,000 barrels of oil per day in Angola, so it's a key part of the company's portfolio. And I think we've been consistently investing over recent years. Block 17, Block 32, and now we're looking at sanctioning some new developments in the coming months. And I think specifically in terms of exploration, we are drilling an exploration well in the country at the moment, and we have a number of rigs running, which both in exploration and on development, which shows the importance of the country to the overall company's portfolio.
Now, I know Angola is restructuring the oil and gas sector. What projects is TotalEnergies looking into investing to help increase oil production in Angola?
Well, say Block 17 is our legacy asset. Block 32 started up a few years ago, and now we're looking at developing Block 2021, which is an asset that we've managed to finish some good discussions with the government to have a framework within which we can work to try and sanction a new deep water project. But I think beyond that as well, like in the TotalEnergies, we're trying to develop a multi-energy strategy across the globe. So likewise in Angola, as well as investing in oil and gas, we're also now investing in renewables. And so we're about to just sign a contract for a 35 megawatt renewable project called Kilemba, which should start up and end by the second half of 2024. So again, it's important for us everywhere in the world that we will maintain our oil and gas pole, but we'll also continue to invest in new energies as well as part of the overall transition.
And that's the long-term plan, isn't it? Because slowly the world is moving away from oil and gas, which is going to take a good couple of 10 years at least, into renewable energies. Is that a sustainable future for not just for Africa or for Angola, but a sustainable future overall?
Well, as I say, we've got two poles in the company. One is oil and gas, and one is in the renewable side. So we will continue to invest in both. I think we heard this morning about the demand for energy in Africa is still very high. 600 million people don't have access to energy. So I think it's important for us that we continue to invest in both sides.
I want to understand from your perspective what the current landscape looks like for Angola's oil and gas sector on a global stage.
Thank you. Yeah, the landscape for Angola is still a very good landscape. There's so many opportunities. Of course, Paulina said yesterday, the hope for big reservoir, like in the 90s, is less probable now. But definitely there is still a huge potential in the oil. But on top of the oil, there is the full value chain of gas that can be developed. The non-associated gas has been given a value just a few years ago, and NGC is the first project for the non-associated gas. The gas has been found so far without searching for it. So now that there is a value for the gas in the upstream, I'm expecting that exploration will kick off, and as TotalEnergies, we are proud that we will drill the first gas exploration well next year in the Block 114, and with the success of the gas, we could improve or increase the capacity of Angola LNG for exporting, but opening up all the other value chain that the gas can be opened for the petrochemical plants and all the other industries that can be following.
What does the future for the oil and gas sector look like, knowing the goal is to transition to a cleaner energy, but it's not something that can happen overnight though. So what do you see the future look like?
The transition is a transition, and therefore transitioning to some endpoint, and the endpoint is still to be defined. I personally believe that the nuclear fusion will play a big role in defining the endpoint and defining the timing of the endpoint will be viable. And so the transition will be basically redefined through now and when the end point will be defined. That is not yet known. What we can do is to exercise, to exploit all the possible energies in order to make the transition to take two very important characteristics: just the transition and transition that is sustainable. Because we cannot forget that we have to keep a very balanced transition to the end point in order not to create a mismatch between offer, demands that could have huge impact on the price, and the price could have impact on the well-being of the population. And also to keep the just transition in order to allow the countries that have still resources to be developed to use their own resources to be developed in order to build a better future. So it has to be an opportunity, and the opportunity should not be against anybody, but should help. But it's a very complex process involving many countries, many rulers. So it's the balance, and we are seeing that there are up and down and hiccups in the process. That is the working all together, using all the possible tools, being pragmatic, but looking for the future, for me, is the key for having a transition that had the value instead of being a problem.
We are here at the Angola Oil and Gas conference, where we've got government officials, industry players, stakeholders, policymakers gathered at one area. Just summarize the conference of the past 2 days. What has come out of it?
There has been phenomenal support this year. We have 1,200 attendees from 24 countries participating who are committed to Angola's oil and gas future. Angola is very importantly strategically positioned as a regional hub, second largest producer of oil in the continent, so has significant influence actually on the global scale as well as on our local continent. In terms of key focus areas over the last few days, we've spoken a lot around financing for new projects, investing into new exploration and increasing production. We have to secure the future of our energy needs, both again from a local perspective and from a regional perspective. A lot of focus has also been around some of the diversity issues in our industry. So we've had a really fantastic conversation around women in energy, where there was a big lens around gender.
Another thing I noticed this past 2 days, there's a lot of MOUs and a lot of deals that have been signed. Can you provide us some feedback as to what this all pertains?
Absolutely, and I think this is one of the key outcomes that we want at Angola Oil and Gas. We are about connecting people, making sure that deals are done. So two significant deals that we're focused on this year, Sonangol and Azul Energy have signed a collaboration around some of the decarbonisation efforts. And this will be quite significant for the country and for the industry. Our local regulator, ANPG, have signed an MOU with 3 universities who are going to be providing technical and engineering expertise and support, both from a new project perspective and also from an institutional perspective. They'll be supporting local concessionaires and also being able to support any new entrant who wants to come and set up in Angola.
Another key aspect of the oil and gas sector, and this was noted last night, is you awarded some of the industries for the contributions they've made for newcomers and such. Just unpack the kind of awards and the kind of winners that walked away with these awards.
Yes, this is definitely a highlight, and I think with so much going on and so much focus on some of the negatives around our industry, it's really important to actually take stock of some of the great achievements and the important, significant impact that our industry actually has, both on a local economy, regional economy, and continental economy. So there were 4 categories this year, and we had 4 very deserving winners. TotalEnergies won the local local company of the year award. They have done significant work in terms of creating jobs and creating developing workforce, and for exploration and production in the local economy. Azul Energy was the winner of the Explorer of the Year award. Sonangol PNP was awarded the Game Changer of the Year award. And then a very, very important award was a Lifetime Achievement Award, which actually went to TotalEnergies, and they've been very committed to the Angolan economy and the Angolan oil and gas industry, so deserving winners.
Saudi Arabia's production in oil has gone down a little bit in July, which gives Angola that sweet spot to leapfrog. What is your strategy, specifically in your supply chain sector, to take Angola to that next step, to position themselves even better than they are now?
Carbship is a part of the wider local content effort to contribute for the development of Angola. As a service company for the oil and gas industry, our role is to support not only the IOCs, international oil companies, but equally support as well the international service companies who have chosen Angola as a place to do business. So our role as a logistic company is mainly to assist them in the supply chain as far material management is concerned, warehouse management and the pipe yard management. Equally, we also have areas like the quayside management, where we handle the on and off the oil cargo which is brought into Angola, which goes to the offshore. So I see this as an opportunity for Carbship and the other local content companies to add a true value in the supply chain in supporting the oil and gas companies. So we're very excited because the oil price at the moment is very stabilized, right? I just heard from the NPG CEO the efforts to increase the production. So a lot of exploration is planned and is underway. So we're positive that our production output also will increase in the next few years.
I keep hearing about the exploration that's being offered here. How does that tie in with the supply chain, your sector? Do you have, will it trickle down to other small businesses that's in line with what you do?
Definitely. I mean, during the exploration phase, many services are required, from security, catering, cleaning, drivers, vehicles, transportation, warehousing. The list is it's wide, right? And the good thing is in Angola, according to the recent local content government decree, is actually a presidential decree 271/20. They are preferential services which are reserved for local companies. A bit as what happens in South Africa, which they call black economic empowerment. So here we have the local content, and then there are a set of services which are exclusively for Angolan companies. And then you have other categories. So within the region of those services exclusively for Angolan companies, either it be during exploration, during production, or even during drilling, all those services are reserved for Angolan companies. So there is a big window of opportunities for Angolan companies to assist, the exploration phase from A to Z.
What's the future for the oil and gas sector look like, knowing that there's a lot of investment also steered towards renewable energies?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a process. I think the achievements, all the oil companies are focused on that, because also the CO2 emissions, we are all working on a reduction of CO2 emissions because that's the impact on the environmental. Recently we faced in 2020 we have the IMO 2020, which reduces the sulfur content, a lot to maximum 0.5, and the emission of CO2 will be reduced. Will have to disappear, within the next 30 years. That's what I heard, and I think all of them are moving to green and renewable energies, where we don't have to rely on oil products. So I think all of them, from the experience and what I've learned, and I see all of them are, moving renewable energies, with solar panels around, and that's what I can see from the oil measures. I think they know that, at some point, maybe not in the next 5 years, but I would say as the goals are for them to change to renewable completely, for the world to rely completely within the next 30 years. I think the achievement needs to be 2050 for no more, fuel. I think they are moving all on the right direction. They are, that's the future. We will have to find a ways, like we did. Well, I didn't understand anything about ships when I got into this business. I didn't know how to drive a motorcycle. So if renewable energy comes, I think we will have to find a way to do some business, without pollution, and I think we will be living more. We will live more years, all of us, right? Because we will be less pollution.
So it's a question of adapt as the times changes.
Yeah, exactly. So it's the times will change it. People will have to live with it. It is a transaction process, which takes time. But we are starting. As you can see from the cards, there are countries that incentives now that you don't pay customs when you have car without pollution. You don't pay parking. You don't. I think it's a process that I work with oil tankers. I deliver oil products, but what should I do? Maybe in the future I will start delivering batteries, solar panels. So it's a process.
So you represent one of the largest publicly traded oil and gas companies. So I'd like to start off by getting an understanding of your view on just the general energy sector in Africa at the moment. We've obviously just come out of an interesting time. We've had the pandemic, we've had geopolitical tensions, and just your views on where we are currently.
Sure, thank you. I think that there's a lot of opportunity in Africa for energy development. We firmly believe at ExxonMobil that access to energy, affordable and reliable energy, eradicates poverty. And so we do see a lot of growth in Africa in the energy sector, and we think that that's helpful and important and critical for future development in Africa.
And tell me, how does ExxonMobil see its role in supporting and accelerating the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and particularly that of access to clean energy for all people?
I would say fundamentally, under the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, number one is eradicating poverty, and what is more important than access to affordable and reliable energy? And we do think that we play an important role in that space, and we will for decades to come. We think that all sources of energy are going to be needed, and that ExxonMobil will be a critical leader in that space.
So talk to us about some of the initiatives that you're driving in that regard.
As an example, in our operations here in Angola, we've been producing for almost 20 years. We started up in November 2003, so we'll celebrate our 20th anniversary later this year. But we have had a relentless focus on reducing our greenhouse gas emissions and our flaring in our offshore operations. So for example, since 2016, we have reduced our flaring by more than 90% and our associated greenhouse gas emissions by more than 70%. And we continue to look to optimize, as we optimize our operation, optimize and reduce our greenhouse gas emissions.
And that's an example of leading by example. Now, another area that I find quite interesting is that you are a woman occupying this role. Not that I particularly find it interesting, but we often have the conversation with regards to getting more women in the energy sector, and that it has proven to be a challenge, with only 20% in the workforce being women, and that number decreasing by 31% as women climb up the corporate ladder. How do you view this? How can we get more women in the sector?
It's something obviously that's very important to me. I think it all starts with education and with young girls, and encouraging them to take math and science, and making sure that they understand that they can do anything that the boys can do, and encouraging them along those paths. And then when they enter the workforce, supporting them. So as an example, I have a 12-year-old daughter. I think it's so important for her to see that her mom is the managing director of a major operation in Africa. And just women need to be able to see somebody in the spot to know that they can do it. And I'm so honored to get to be that person for ExxonMobil Angola, and I know there will be more to follow me in the future.
As we wrap up this two-day conference, I want to pick your brain on some of the key conversations that came out from this event.
Thank you very much, The World, and thank you very much for CNBC Africa to cover this Angola Oil and Gas 2023. As you know, this is our fourth edition. We're coming to the end of the event, where this magnificent investment attraction platform has been in the last 2 days discussing about the most important questions that advance Angola's oil and gas industry. Some of the key issues that were discussed here relate to the exploration potential of Angola and how to maximize this potential, how the big players are looking at new opportunities, and also developing opportunities already in hand, and how to make that better. It was also an opportunity here at this event to have small and medium-sized companies to come and showcase what business opportunities they can bring to Angola, and interact with the Angolan institutions such as the regulator, which is the ANPG, the National Oil Agency, Oil and Gas Agency of Angola, as well as interactions with the ministry, which is the main legislator, and is here to clarify to investors about what are the rules of engagement for Angola, what are the opportunities, and in that sense, how the government is driving a narrative that is a narrative for attraction of investment, comfortable investment conditions for investors that are coming from outside, as well as what are the areas that are growth areas for within the range of upstream, midstream, and downstream that perhaps companies and investors are not looking at. So it was a very complete and thorough look at the different areas. They have identified opportunities within the downstream, which is a big growth area for Angola. The downstream is not as developed as the upstream, and I believe that the participants are happy, so the feedback has been positive.
Now, a big part of this, the conversations here, you mentioned the regulators here, those sitting behind changing the policy, they're all gathered in the same room. Now, to help make investment in Angola more attractive, not just in your oil sector, but in your renewable energy as well, what needs to shift around to make that easier for businesses to come in and for investors to come in and say, look, all right, let's take Africa, let's take Angola, and let's leapfrog, leaps and boundaries above everybody else?
Well, that is a really brilliant question. And I think Angola right now is in the right position to be able to look at these new opportunities within the energy transition space. But let's just look back a little bit. When this new President João Lourenço, came into power 2017, there was a need, the industry called for reform. And the President answered and rose to the occasion by bringing these new reforms. The main reform obviously was to remove the concessionaire function of Sonangol, and Sonangol just became a normal upstream, midstream and downstream player. It refocuses business to the core business of oil and gas. What it then created is an opportunity for the ANPG, which is the Angola National Petroleum and Gas and Biofuels Agency, to focus on investment attraction into Angola in the various segments, both in the upstream segment, driving exploration, improving conditions for fiscal conditions for development of discoveries that were there in the past and discoveries that were being taken into production, and also improving a little bit the conditions, production conditions in some of the production sharing agreements with the operators. With the new conversation about the trifecta, which is the famous ESG or trifecta, which is growth, and fighting poverty and the environment. So looking at those three and how you can tackle that. Then you look at the new opportunities to leverage on the oil and gas and advance other areas, namely the solar and gas to power, which is mainly what Angola is focusing to add to its energy matrix. As you probably know, majority of Angola's power comes from hydro, but we use a lot of generators in Angola. So to curve a little bit this, there's been a lot of initiatives from players such as Azul, which is a partnership between BP and ENI, Sonangol, and other companies in Total, looking at solar projects. They've delivered this year, a couple of months ago, the Caraculo project, which is 25 megawatt of solar power. First phase, there'll be a second phase with another 25 megawatt. It's a very good solution for remote areas to give power to people. There are gas to power initiatives happening in the north of Angola and in Cabinda as well. So there are opportunities for growth in these other areas. Obviously, we also discussed in the event the other subsectors such as fertilizers and renewable fuels. Reusing some oil like HVO to make which hydrotreated vegetable oil, how to transform oils into then fuels. We also heard conversations about let's say sustainable aviation fuels, which is also something important. There are some European legislations that require airlines entering into the European space to have green aviation fuel. So Africa will have to rise to this occasion, also to develop this side of the industry, which is new. So as I said before, there's a lot of opportunities that were discussed here. This is an amazing platform to give Angola to be able to show to the world what we have, but not outside Angola. We have to do it from within Angola.
And that's it for this Focus On special. I'm David Rarame, reporting for CNBC Africa all the way from Luanda, Angola. Until next time, goodbye.